The Drinking Challenge with Noel Johnson on RTL SA.
If I'm gonna love someone, I'm just gonna love myself.
Day 12 of the Drinking Challenge and the end of another work week. So it's 2 full weeks that we've been at this now. Sunday will obviously be entire weeks, but nonetheless, 12 days done and dusted. This week has been focused on the life timeline, and like I said yesterday, Monday was just a brief introduction. Tuesday we broke it down and made it a little bit easier to compile. Wednesday we added thoughts and emotions, and then yesterday we spoke about reframing. Now today we're going to apply that reframing principle to the timeline. The reason why we do this is because we often go through life, how should I put it, putting a context on our feelings. And very often that context that we put on our feelings is because we don't really study and examine those specific feelings. Now, with reframing, what we do is we actually break these feelings apart and try to put a positive spin on them, or an opportunistic spin, or something like that on it. So I used the example of the dog dying yesterday, and possibly looking at it as rather celebrating the time that the dog was with you and alive, and then the opportunity that would have come through it would obviously have been you got a new pet, and so on and so on and so forth. It's not easy to reframe a lot of situations, and you might look at certain situations. I mean, dog is very, so I don't want to make light of it because it really affects people in different ways, but it's a lighter way of looking at it to a certain degree. But I mean, you get things like sexual abuse, you get things like physical abuse, you get things like divorce, your parental divorce, your own divorce, anything like that. You might look at these situations and say, how do you reframe and put a positive spin on situations like that? Well, the first thing that I do is I sort of try to remove myself from the situation. I sort of try to look at it from an outsider's perspective. And haven't you noticed that very often when people give you advice, it's sort of like pretty much generic, bland advice, because they're not walking through that. So I want to try and encourage you to sort of withdraw yourself from those feelings and emotions. Well, this is what I do. This is what I'm doing to a certain degree, and look at it from an outsider's perspective and try and break apart these feelings. It could be a divorce that you went through as a child and your parents got divorced, and there's always collateral damage in a divorce. So there's no ways that I'm going to make light of it and say, your feelings are unfounded or anything like that, because that is not the case. The children always get affected throughout a divorce, no matter how amicable the divorce is and how good it went. But maybe try and break apart those feelings that you had in that period. So your parents got divorced. Yes, they did. You moved into a different house, or maybe you stayed in the house, but one of the parents moved out, and it's very difficult to put a positive spin on those feelings. But if you take an outside perspective look into it, and maybe the opportunities came when you had, for example, 2 birthdays, 2 Christmases, most importantly 2 happier parents. And if you start focusing on those elements from the opportunity side, and start thinking less about how heartbroken you were and how your world turned around and how it was turned upside down, then you can sort of maybe start to deal with these issues. Recognize the feelings that you had. Do not dismiss them or throw them away. Recognize them. Own them. Yes, I felt heartbroken. I felt lost. I missed the parent that moved out. All of those are very valid and very fair. And don't ever dispel them. Own them. Feel them. You are entitled to feel them. And I strongly suggest that you do that. But maybe try and just look at it from a different perspective and say, okay, well, dad moved out. He's been happily married for the last 15 years. It maybe wasn't that bad. Mom got remarried. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe it was a good thing because there was a lot of tension in the household at that point. Again, please don't take what I'm saying wrong, because I'm not trying to make light of any of your points or situations. All I'm trying to do is, which is what I'm trying to do for myself, is just reframe them. Look at them from a outsider's perspective and give yourself advice as if you were an outsider. Try that, maybe. And try look for the positives that came out of something like that. Again, I say, yeah, things like sexual abuse and physical abuse and all that stuff, I understand. But what are the key learnings? What did you learn from that? Just think about it. This is what it's all about. Apply the principle of reframing these situations. Just try. And you probably won't get it right first shot. You might not get it right second shot. But at some point, you are going to find a way to frame these situations in a way that you can make peace with the pain and the suffering and the feeling of loss and grief and all those that came along with it, the context of those feelings that you put onto it. I know this is heavy, and I know it's a difficult task, and I know a lot of people would shy away from it, but I promise you, it is the most therapeutic way to deal with big moments in your life. And reframing, it's a way to look at it. Once you have started reframing things like this, you will actually start reframing things in your daily life as well. If your boss shouts at you or whatever, you will automatically, subconsciously reframe it into, okay, what do I learn out of this? Yeah, my boss might be wrong or might be overreacting or whatever, but what have I learned from this? What can I take away from this? How can I deal with this situation without going into a fit of rage or anything like that? Reframing is very, very important. Very, very important in the process of healing and self-discovery. I encourage you to take the time, look at those bullet points that you put down, feel those feelings that you attach to them, and try reframe them. Have a beautiful Friday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will put day 13 up tomorrow, and I look forward to sharing that with you.
The Drinking Challenge with Noel Johnson on RTL SA.